When most people think of people who go hunting, Florida is hardly the first place that springs to mind. People frequently think of Texas or Alabama, but in my opinion, Florida, with its enormous swamps, dense palm trees, and natural vegetation, is a heaven for hunters who enjoy the harshness and drama. This is especially true when you are seated in a buggy, because you will feel as though all of the hunting expeditions are within your reach. As can be seen, this buggy does not have any doors. It is constructed with a solid steel frame, massive spiked wheels, and a gun mount that is situated in front of the handlebars. The only sounds that could be heard were the buzzing of insects and the continuous sound of the engine below. The surrounding area was completely silent. Just then, the sound of dogs barking could be heard everywhere. There was a massive wild boar that was encircled by a band of dogs and was located a few dozen meters distant from us. After the button came to a stop, I carefully established the location so that I could shoot. The tranquil atmosphere was ripped apart by the deafening explosion. There was a brief hesitation before the wild boar gave out and fell to the ground. This wild boar, on the other hand, was our first trophy, despite its medium size. After that, we proceeded further into the swamp. It was completely overrun with low plants and palm trees that had grown wild. A slow speed was not possible for the buggy. I was able to observe each and every movement of the hounds after switching to the slow mode. Out of nowhere, a large number of wild boars, each of which was enormous, emerged from the bushes. At the same time, we opened fire without taking any further action. It is possible that they were startled by the sound of the engine, since they raced extremely quickly and gradually separated from one another, making their way in different directions. I continued my journey southward, where the ground was flat, and I was close to the grazing pasture, which was a common gathering place for wild boars because there was an abundance of food. We could feel the cool wind of summer blowing through the air at this moment, and the car was moving at a slow pace. In the vicinity of the forest's border, we came across a herd of wild boars who were drinking at a little water hole. Without announcing our presence to the herd, we exited the vehicle and moved to a clearing that was approximately 50 meters away from the water source. It was a calm and serene atmosphere throughout. Our target was the herd of pigs, specifically the ones that were the largest. Following the explosion, the wild boar that was the largest fell to the ground and dispersed. Following the collection of the wild boars that had been shot, we proceeded to continue our journey on the buggy. The afternoon had already arrived. In addition, our dogs came across the wild boar and made an attempt to give chase to it. One of our pals did not resort to the use of a firearm in order to bring down the wild boar this time. The audacious idea of capturing the wild boar with his hands was one that he presented to himself. Yes, it is possible that you will have a difficult time locating this site. Yet, in certain marshes in Florida, it is not an uncommon sight. After a thrilling session in which we caught wild boars using only our bare hands, we continued to move around on the buggy and look for wild boars during the subsequent session. It is not for those who are easily discouraged to go wild hog hunting in Florida. The heat, the insects, the dirt, and the possibility of being attacked by a pig. But each and every journey presents its own unique difficulties. A contest between the boldness of humans and the untamed wisdom of the natural world. As I drove back, my face and hands were sunburned, my shirt was covered in dust and sweat, I had scratches from the bushes, and I had mosquito bites that were painful. Everything was really worth it. I set the pistol down, cleaned the barrel, and then sat for a while in the middle of the field, where the heat was scorching, yet I was perfectly content. The time we spent hunting in the marsh has now come to an important conclusion. Your thoughts on the video that was released today? In order to let us know, please leave your comments below. In order to stay up to date with the most recent notifications, don't forget to like and subscribe. I could never have imagined that one day I would be standing in the middle of a deep French forest with a rifle in my hand, listening to the wind whistling through the ancient trees, and feeling my heart pumping as the heavy footfall of wild boar echoed in the distance. A natural forest of the Savin, which is located in a mountainous part of the Mississippi, was the location during which we went hunting. The hunt is not something that is done for fun, but it is the way that we, the farmers, defend the land that we work on. Early in the morning, before the sun rose, we joined a hunting party consisting of 6 natives. These men were all too familiar with the jungle, hunting dogs, and the peacefulness of nature. We began our day by joining the hunting party. A few hundred meters separated each of the three groups that we came together to form. Beginning in the wee hours of the morning, wild boars would frequently travel through this region. Rather than being afraid, I was holding my rifle tightly because I felt like such a small person in comparison to the vastness of nature. We made use of walkie-talkies so that we could converse more easily. There was a voice that said, "Watch out, there's a big one heading south," and it was heard on the walkie-talkie. "It has just moved to that location." The rhythm of my heartbeat became more rapid. Actually, a wild boar made its appearance. We were holding guns around it, waiting for the opportunity to take it down, but it was unaware of our presence. The tranquil mood was shattered by the sound of a gunshot, and the boar fell to the ground immediately after it was shot. Peter, a buddy of mine, was the one who dismissed it. According to what I've heard, he had a lot of expertise hunting wild boars. As we remained in the same place, we proceeded to ambush. At approximately 20 minutes later, I became aware of a peculiar sound, which like heavy, regular footfall stomping on dry leaves. Subsequently, a larger wild boar stood before me. During the center of the forest, the sound of the gunfire was extremely loud. At that moment, the pig let out a squeal and dashed into the forest like a tornado. My heart was beating so fast that it felt like it was going to burst out of my chest, but I couldn't tell if I had hit it or not. I felt like it was going to explode. Following the pursuit and killing of a few wild boars, we did not come across any more wild boars. Upon hearing the gunshots, it appeared as though they relocated to a different location. We also made the decision to relocate the ambush of wild boars to a different area. Pierre informed us that the pigs would frequently pass via this trail because it is located close to the pasture that is adjacent to the farm. Undoubtedly, after only a few minutes of waiting, a bushy black-gray boar gently emerged from the bushes from a distance of approximately 30 meters from where I was standing. It was murdered by my bullet. At the same time as it was a wonderful and exhilarating experience, killing a wild boar was not something that I felt happy about. After a few minutes had passed, I received a signal. I was in the path of some wild boars that were moving towards me. At this point, I was no longer experiencing any feelings of anxiety, but I was prepared to grasp my gun firmly. Pierre claims that the woodland is an excellent location for the breeding of wild boars, and despite wild boars being hunted on a weekly and monthly basis, the population has not decreased. Pierre gave us a signal in the afternoon to make our way slowly towards the edge of the woodland so that we could catch up with him before it got dark. One of the wild boars with dark hair appeared. It was very large. Although we allowed the boar to escape, we were able to kill it quite fast. Due to its enormous size, it must have spent a significant amount of time foraging on the farm. We made our way back to the hunting lodge that afternoon, where a fire was blazing and a large pot of stew was coming to a boil. The tastiest part of the wild pig was kept for dinner after it was killed on the forest floor. By the light of the fire, red wine was poured into glasses, laughter could be heard, and stories from the past and the present were intertwined. They related their experiences of being pursued by wild boars, and I related the story of the shot that took place. According to Pierre, this is not a game. We are required to carry out this action if we do not wish to sustain any injuries. After a long trek through the dense woodland of France, the hunt for wild boar has finally come to a conclusion. What are your feelings? In order to let us know, please leave your comments below. In order to stay up to date with the most recent notifications, don't forget to like and subscribe. Wild boars have been a cause of concern for the local community in Bulgaria for a very long time, particularly in the sections of the country that are characterized by temperate forests that are interspersed with grasslands and farms in the north. They are not only responsible for the destruction of crops, but they also do significant harm to the natural ecosystem at large. Due to the escalating severity of the crisis, the villagers have been obliged to take drastic measures, such as installing electric fences around their gardens or even employing professional hunting teams in order to track down and capture the wild boars. The wild boar population in this area has never exhibited any signs of significant reduction, despite the several approaches that have been tried. Therefore, we are going to go out and hunt once more today, and we are going to take up our rifles. Following a speedy breakfast, we took the hunting dogs from the front of the farm to the back of the property. Cornfields that have recently been harvested are usually a feast, and these are the ones that bring wild boars down from the hills. I believed that this would be an excellent location for an ambush, and it would definitely be a huge catch today. It was true that a large herd of boars suddenly emerged from a plot of dry maize after we had been waiting for less than an hour. I was so excited that I couldn't contain my excitement. With my rifle lifted, I pulled the trigger on the weapon. The herd, which had been scared, dispersed across the field. It appeared as though the largest and heaviest one had been struck, injured, and was falling behind. As swiftly as they could, the hounds encircled it, leaving it with no opportunity to flee. After that, all that was required of me was to walk over and do the job with a single shot that was shot cleanly. We had our first trophy of the day in our possession. We moved to the opposite side of the field after that exciting meeting that we had just experienced. This particular region had not yet been harvested, an expanse of verdant grass that stretched out to the horizon. Given the excellent visibility, it was an excellent opportunity for another ambush. I studied the area from an elevated mound, and I quickly identified a new target in the surroundings. I brought my rifle up to my shoulder, patiently followed its movement, waited for the right moment, and then began firing. The rear leg was struck by the bullet. As it made its way across the grass, the boar eventually came to a stop. The crew as a whole remained energized as they saw achievement after accomplishment. No one allowed themselves to fall behind, despite the fact that it was already noon and the sun was blazing down on the field. We made the decision to conceal ourselves behind a maize bush this time. As Jake and I took up positions, we clenched our guns tightly and waited patiently for the situation to unfold. There it was, a hefty wild boar gently making its way in that was less than 10 meters away from where we were standing. It appeared to be aware of the potential threat posed by the barrel, and it halted and peered at it. We didn't waste a single second, however. It was followed by a few fast shots. The boar was struck, but it continued to attempt to escape. I was unable to allow it to depart. After firing a few more bullets in a hurry, I eventually passed out in the middle of the field because I was exhausted. The events that took place in front of me were a breathtaking sight. There was a herd of several dozen wild boars that rushed by like a black whirlwind, blowing up clouds of dust and leaving behind that strong smell that must have been the smell of the wild. The field was filled with the sound of gunfire. In the midst of the mayhem, a few boars were unable to escape. We broke up quite early in the afternoon in order to search for more targets. I went for a ride on my motorcycle through the fields. Unexpectedly, a shadowy figure made its way over. After putting my foot on the gas, I gave chase. In spite of this, I hurriedly entered the room. I attempted to fire with one hand while riding, but I kept missing the target. I was left feeling frustrated due to the fact that the boar had disappeared by the time I quit biting it, but my adrenaline was still pumping. A pitch-black boar suddenly appeared out of nowhere and rushed across the road in front of Jake and myself as we were driving back to base. We had just about reached the point when we believed the hunt was done. One's instincts took over. After coming to a stop, we raised our weapons. Jake was the first to fire, but his shot was unsuccessful. I immediately shot while attempting to maintain my composure. At this point, the shot was successful. When it reached the edge of the field, the pig rolled over and began to thrash around. In the distance, the golden light of the sunset could be seen stretching across the treetops. As we sat by the truck, we couldn't help but laugh and talk. A greater number of boars had been killed. All of the heart-pounding chases, the decisive shots, and even the near misses that occurred over the wide plains were the things that remained most memorable. As the helicopter flew across the huge grasslands, it was able to see the entire area. In the lower area, the wild boars fled in a state of fear, their bodies attempting to conceal themselves in the thick shrubs. My finger became more firmly gripped on the trigger, and I held my breath. One of the enormous pigs will be the first animal to be targeted in this hunt, and it will happen in only a few seconds. We would like to welcome you to the helicopter hunting of wild boar. Take into consideration that wild boars are not merely a pathetic animal. They have developed into a significant danger to agricultural practices and ecosystems in a number of locations across the globe, particularly in the United States of America and Australia. Therefore, in order to take control of the wild boar population, which is growing at an alarming rate, the government has authorized helicopter shooting of wild pigs. On the other hand, is this approach truly effective? Watching this video is the solution. Clearly evident from above is the chaotic situation that has taken place. The herd of pigs immediately went into a state of terror upon hearing the roar of the helicopter, and they began searching for a route to flee as quickly as possible. They made a mad dash into the dry forest that was close, attempting to take advantage of the complicated terrain in order to conceal themselves. As quickly as possible, the pilot brought the chopper down to a lower level, flying it directly over the herd of pigs. Dust was thrown up by the propellers, which produced a powerful wind. I held my breath and concentrated on the goal while I was in the center of the air that was swinging. As the initial target, the wild boar that was the largest in the herd was taken. It was me that pulled the trigger. There was a loud bang that resounded. It was the animal's shoulder that was struck by the bullet, which caused it to stumble and fall to the dry ground below. The remaining pigs were as terrified as they had been before. Within the commotion of the mob, I attempted to shoot at another pig. It was only a fraction of a second when the entire herd vanished beneath the thick undergrowth. I could not allow them to get too far ahead. I communicated to the pilot that we should proceed with the pursuit. The chopper made a course correction and began flying in circles over the forest, getting ready for yet another exciting pursuit. Suddenly, while we were flying through the forest, we came across another herd of wild boars who were hiding under the thick leaves of the trees. I did not let any reluctance prevent me from raising my weapon and aiming it directly at the target. There was a loud bang, but the bullet did not hit its target. The male boar was frightened, and it gave out a ferocious roar before rushing through the dry bushes at a faster pace. Much though wild boars were already nimble, they became much more evasive when they were aroused by the sound of gunshots. Accurate targeting was a major issue when viewed from above because the helicopter was continuously moving. This was a task that required flawless gun control and sniper training. During this time, the wild boars that were still present had dispersed in a variety of ways. In a short amount of time, I committed their routes to memory, allocated formations, and started something fresh. During this particular instance, the objective was to entirely eradicate the danger, making certain that the region surrounding the farm was devoid of any wild animals. As we neared the thick grass where the wild boars that were still alive were hiding, the helicopter began to drop gradually to the ground. We flew in close proximity to the summits of the trees, our eyes attentively examining each bush. As was to be expected, the pigs were unable to continue to tolerate the intense noise that the helicopter engine was producing. In a state of fear, they hurriedly emerged from their hiding place and dispersed themselves around the open area, looking for a means of evading capture. I began fire at that precise moment, and each shot rang out with a resounding conviction, without a single second of hesitation. Every shot was accurate, and it was able to eliminate every single one of them while they were still attempting to flee. A total of 5 more wild pigs had collapsed on the ground within the span of just 3 minutes, putting an end to their fruitless flight. After a hard day of chasing, we were about to call it quits on our hunt, but just as we were about to pull the trigger, an unexpected sight appeared in front of our eyes. The clearing was surrounded by a herd of enormous wild boars that had come together. As soon as the pilot saw that this was an excellent opportunity, he promptly dropped the altitude, which preserved the stability of the helicopter. I rapidly moved into position, and then I fired a shot that was pinpoint accurate. The bullet was pinned specifically to the weak area, which caused it to collapse immediately. Immediately, the remaining wild boars began to pack up. All of their efforts to locate a path out of the open terrain were fruitless, despite the fact that they tried. It was impossible for them to conceal themselves in any of the trees or shrubs that were available to them, because they were entirely exposed to the sights. Taking advantage of the circumstance, my teammates and I have been continuously opening fire, and we have been successful in taking them down one by one. After only 10 minutes, the entire herd of wild boars was wiped out, putting an end to the hunt in a decisive manner. The farm was able to avoid a particularly devastating season as a result of the fact that the number of wild boars that were killed during the trip was greater than what was anticipated. Is this hunting trip something that has piqued your interest? You can leave your comments in the comment box, and if you want to witness more exciting hunts, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Lorraine, which is located in the northeastern region of France, is a region that is all too familiar with the sight of wild boars being hunted. According to them, wild boars are not just any wild animals. Rather, they are agricultural pests that cause damage to crops and are carriers of diseases that are harmful to livestock. We, the individuals tasked with the responsibility of regulating wild boars, undertook a comprehensive operation in the Darnay forest today. during which we eradicated a significant number of wild boars that were deemed to be hazardous. In order to monitor the enormous forest, we divided ourselves into smaller groups.